Time to make the form live. Let's look at all the ways we can embed a Gravity form onto our website, from the block editor to the widget area. First, we'll go to Pages, Add New, and then create a new page called Contact Me. Now let's locate the Gravity Forms block. There's a few ways that we can add the block, including the slash notation, pressing the black Add Block Inserter icon, or clicking the blue Block Inserter icon at the top. I'll do that, and then we can scroll through all of the blocks available to us. This view is going to look different depending on what theme and block plugins you have installed, but we can also search for Gravity Forms. We'll drag the block into the block inserter, and then we'll select the Contact Me form. When we do that, we can see that the form shows up in line, and we have a new panel of settings here. We can choose to show or hide the form title and form description. I'll hide both of those. And then we can also turn the preview on and off. We'll keep it on so we know what the form looks like. We can also enable or disable Ajax, which will basically allow the user to submit the form without refreshing the page. If you turn this on, be sure to test your form extra well so that you know everything is working properly. And then here we can add some field values. This is advanced, and we will leave these blank for now. So with that, let's go ahead and publish our page, and then we'll click View Page. So you can see with the template I'm using, things don't look great. I'm just going to go ahead and make an adjustment to the theme I'm using here. And we'll set this to narrow, and we'll make sure to add some padding. These settings are highly dependent on the theme I'm using. Your mileage may vary depending on the theme that you're using, but Gravity Forms is theme agnostic. All right, that looks a lot better. So let's go ahead and fill out the form. I'll add my first name, my email address, and then I'll add a message that's hello world. Then we'll click submit, and you can see our custom message has shown up. And then if I go to my email inbox, we'll be able to see the email come through. So we could see that there is the subject we created here. And then you see Gmail is warning us because this is not the verified email address that it was sent from, but this is safe to me. We could see the fields that were submitted, and then the customization we made, submitted on, and then the date. Now, if we go back to our WordPress site, there's one more place that we can add forms, and that is in widgets. And thanks to the update to WordPress as of 5.8, the widgets area is another block area, which means we can use the same exact process to add Gravity Forms to the widget area with the same settings and everything. If you're using a version of WordPress that is pre 5.8, you will see the standard widget area, and you'll be able to drag the Gravity Forms widget into that area. But as blocks roll out to more areas with full site editing, we'll be able to add forms in even more places, like the header and footer as well. When a user submits any form using Gravity Forms, their entry is stored in the WordPress database. Let's take a look at how to access and interact with those form entries. First, go to Forms and then Entries, and you'll see a list of any of the entries that were filled out. This list is specific per form, so if you have more than one form, use the drop-down box under the Gravity Forms logo to select the form you want to view the entries for. For each entry, if you hover over one of them, you can view, mark as red or trash. You can also star the entries so that they show up in a filtered list. You can also search any of the entries based on the information in that form. So if we wanted to search for only messages that had the first name Joe or contained the word Joe, we could do that. Clicking View or clicking on the first column in the entry brings us to an entry detail view, where we could see all of the information the form was filled out, if there were any empty fields, and then essentially what serves as an audit trail for everything that Gravity Forms did with this information. We can also add notes about the entry, which we can email to the person who filled out the form, resend notifications, or print the entry including our notes. A big benefit of the entries being stored in Gravity Forms, as well as any of the notifications we set up, is data assurance. I've had email forms, third-party connections, and automations fail. But having the data stored in WordPress means that I never lost it, even if it did take me longer to see and respond. But if you have complex forms, like job applications, you can easily review, note, and star applications from a single interface, and you can use the simple navigation buttons in the top right to quickly move through each entry. Now it's your turn. Expanding on our contact form, let's make a simple job application form. Here are the requirements. There should be sections for personal information, relevant work experience, education, references, and then a free form text area for any other relevant information at the end of the form. In the personal information section, there should be name, email, phone, address, website, and resume, which is a file upload field. All fields except website should be required, and the resume should be a PDF or doc or Word document only. In relevant experience, there should be 2 sets of the same fields. So there should be 2 fields for company name, applicant's title, start date, end date, and a field that describes the work done. None of these are required. In education, we are going to instruct the applicant that only the highest form of education is requested here, but it's not going to be required, and it should ask for 3 fields: the institution, the major or degree, and the year of graduation. In references, there should be 3 sets of the same fields for name, phone number, and relationship to the applicant. And though we're asking for 3 references, only 1 reference is required. For the form settings, the applicant should also get a copy of the form emailed to them in the notifications. Data privacy settings should be enabled. The applicant should be able to save the form and finish later. Layout and other settings are up to you. All right, let's go ahead and create our form. And as a reminder here, the way I did it may be different from the way that you do it, and that's okay as long as it meets all of the requirements. So under Forms, let's click Add New. We'll call this Job Application. Then we'll click Create Form. And we need to create sections here. So I'm going to create a new section. I'm going to call this Personal Information. And then I'm going to start adding fields to this. So we need the name. I will keep first and last name. And then we need the email address and phone number. I'll put those side by side. And then we need their mailing address. So I'll put that actually above email and phone. And we can keep this as is. If I know that all of my applicants are coming from the United States, I could set this address type to the United States. And then we will add the website field. And finally, for this section, the resume field, which is a file upload. Now, in the file upload field, we can change the name to resume. In the description, we'll say PDF or Word document only. And then in the allowed file extensions is where we can actually specify this. So we'll say PDF and then docx. Remember, there are 2 different types of Word documents here. And we'll make this required, as well as the name field, the address field, the email field, and the phone field. Also notice that with phone, we can change the format. I'm going to keep it as the United States format because that's the form I'm building. Next, we need a new section called relevant information. So we'll go back to our standard fields, add the new section here, and we will call this relevant experience. And then here we want two sets of the same fields. So what I'm going to do is add the three fields and then I'll duplicate them. So we need company name. I'll just name that now, company name. And then the next field is title. So I'll place that next to company name, your title, and then start and end dates. So those are going to be advanced fields. So we'll say date, and we'll call this the start date. Now, we can choose the date picker. We can include a date field, and we can also choose the format. Now, if we choose the date picker, we'll get a notification that it may not be accessible for people who rely on keyboard or screen reader. It also might not be supported in all browsers, depending on which browser you're using. So I'm going to set this to date field. And then I'm going to duplicate this. I'll move it up next to the start date, and I will rename it to end date. And then we want a field to describe the work. So this will be a paragraph text. What were your responsibilities? All right, so now we want to duplicate all of these fields. So I'll duplicate this, and then the start and end date. We'll drag everything into place in a minute, and then company name and your title. So let's drag the company name first. We'll drag that above the responsibilities field. We'll go back to grab your title. And then we'll do the same thing for start and end date. All right, and that is the relevant experience section. Now we will create the education section. And here we can instruct the user to only have their most recent or their highest form of education. So we'll add an HTML block here. Now, if you don't know HTML, that's okay. You can accept plain text, but if you do, I'll make this a paragraph. Please add your highest form of education. All right, and then we're looking for three fields here. The first is the institution. Next is the degree or major. And then finally, we have year graduated. So we'll choose the date here. We'll put all of these on the same line. And then we're going to set this to date field. And we only need the year here, which it looks like we can't actually set. So we can't actually just make this year. So what we might want to do is just include a standard number field. Instead, this will validate the number. So we can rename this to year. And then the range, we'll set something like 1900 to the current year. And that should have us well covered. And then the number format is fine. So this will at least validate that we're getting a number here. Next, we want to create a section called references. And we're going to have three sets of this information, but only one is required. So this is going to be name, phone number, and then relationship, which can be a single line of text. And again, we'll put all of these on the same line. first and last name works, and then we'll make this, well, maybe we'll put name on its own line there. We'll make this one required. We'll make this phone number required, and then we'll name this relationship, and we'll make that required as well. And then we'll repeat this process. So instead of dragging and dropping again, I will just add the new fields again. Name, phone, relationship. And then since this is not required, we can duplicate these fields. And finally, and I'm going to create a section here called anything else. And then we'll add a paragraph. Call this any other relevant information. And then we will save our form. We'll go to the form settings. I'm going to set the required field to asterisk. I'll set the validation summary. Enable save and continue. I'll turn on the anti-spam honeypot and save. I'll go to notifications. So what I'm going to do for the notification is duplicate the admin notification because I want this to be exactly the same. I'll call it applicant notification. And then the send to email will be the applicant's email. So I'm going to grab that here because we don't have the merge tags. Or we can select an email field. That would be better. So we can do that. And then everything else will be the same. Maybe we want to add a message here. Here's a copy of your application for your records. And then we can save this. And then finally, we will prevent storage of IP address and enable integration with WordPress tools. And then it looks like we have to select all of these. Done. And we'll click Save Settings. And there you have it. If we preview this form, we could see what it looks like in the preview. Or if you want to give it a full and thorough test, you can embed it on a page and fill it out. But that's how I'd create our job application.